Hello, my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, and praise be, sensitivities are now saving on the Hotas one on the Series S and X, I believe. I only own the Series S myself, so I can confirm that they do indeed save. Let me just quickly show you. Go to Control Options, and sure, the Hotas one is selected at the top. And then go to Sensitivities. And as you can see, they're saving. These are now saved after me coming back overnight. I was messing around with them yesterday. So in this video, I'm going to show you my sensitivity settings, give you a little talk over them to show you why I've set them the way I have, and then also show you a little test flight with the sensitivities in action. So let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so as you see, I've got a flight over London in progress. London City, as per usual for me. But let's get straight into my sensitivities. So, control options. So, Hotas 1 and sensitivity. So, going from left to right, and also we'll touch on axis 5. Axis 1 is your throttle sensitivity. I found that I don't need to set anything for that. My throttle is fine on my Hotas 1. You can set sensitivities there if you want to. I just found that I hadn't needed to do so. Axis 2 is your twist axis on your Hotas 1, on your joystick part. The twist axis. I use this personally for rudder control. As you can see, I've got sensitivity set to -25 in both the minus and plus sensitivity boxes. This just works well for me. -25, and I'm going to show you this in action later. If you're using the rocker switch on front of the throttle, that will be axis 5. Maybe try -25 in the minus and plus if you're not sure, and then you can adjust them to where you feel better. Remember, all these axes I'm showing you are all to do with my personal preference. It's up to you where you set them. I'm just showing you mine, and then you can play with these and change them to your heart's content. So axis 2, -25 in the sensitivity minus and plus axis works well for rudder. Axis 3 is your pitch axis on your joystick. Now you've got to be a bit more liberal with this and put a bit more sensitivity settings into them, because the pitch axis can be quite sensitive, and when you're coming into flare to land, you don't want to get that wrong. So for me, -55 in the minus and plus axis, -55 seems to work well for me for the pitch axis. Like I said, you've got to put a little bit more, I find, sensitivity settings in the pitch, just so it feels right and you don't overcompensate when you're coming into land and goodness knows what. For your ailerons, left and right movement of your joystick, -43 works well for me. Now this may be a bit limiting and a bit tight for other people, so maybe set them to -43 and then play with them. Maybe turn them down a bit if you feel that the sensitivity isn't quite right. For me, this just works well when I'm banking left and right, so -43. So for these three boxes where I've got my sensitivity set up, axis 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to leave that on screen for you. You can pause the video, and you can copy them and then play around with them. One thing I'll mention here, reactivity doesn't seem to save for me. Let me know down in the comments if you're having similar issues. If I mess around with reactivity and save them, if I shut down the Xbox and restart, reactivities are not saving. I don't know if they are for other people, but it's a problem for me. In fact, when I played with reactivity on the aileron axis, the banking axis, I found that it reset all my sensitivities back to 0 when I shut down and restarted my Series S. So I wouldn't recommend playing around with reactivity if you're encountering similar issues. In fact, with the Hotas one, I've simply found that I've not needed to put any reactivity in there. It would just be a nice option for those wishing to do so. But for now, these are not saving for me and possibly other people. And like I've mentioned, Axis 5, if that's where you prefer your rudder, put your minus and plus sensitivities in there, play around with these to where it suits you. Okay, so with those out of the way, I don't need to apply and save that because I've not changed anything. Let's get back to the sim, and I'll restart this flight and do a little quick test flight with you with my sensitivity settings. And here we are, London City Airport, runway 27, ready to fly. So let's just do a bit of taxiing around the airport, shall we? Throttle halfway, release the parking brake just to get us moving. We'll just do a bit of taxiing with our rudder settings on our twist axis on our joystick. Just do a quick circle, basically. There you go. It feels great now. With those sensitivity settings, especially now we can save them. Let's just slow down a little bit there. Yeah, it feels almost akin to using rudder pedals. That sounds a bit strange because I'm twisting the joystick. But the range of motion it gives you and the feeling, very nice. You're going to enjoy taxiing with those settings, whether you're using the twist axis or the rocker switch. Like I said, with the rocker switch, you may have to play around with sensitivity settings to get them to where you want them. We'll come back on the runway here. Let's hope another big aircraft doesn't land on top of us. Shouldn't do. So throttle up. Lots of people around. I did see Old Gunner around here a few moments ago. He might have gone further afield. Let's just see. So we'll throttle up. We don't have any flaps. Now, I'll mention this. A quick apologies if my OBS settings are not quite set to the way I want them. I've been playing around with OBS for the past day, and I've not got my settings quite right, so any jerkiness, it's not coming from the Series S, it's more coming from my recording, and any bit rate and goodness knows what. So I've just taken off. I'm using my B1 and B2 buttons as usual for trim. After this last update, the B1 and B2 buttons actually feel better to trim. I don't know if that's a thing and other people have noticed, but trimming now, that feels a lot better. Now we're up in the air, let's move left and right. Wonderful. Now it's a personal preference thing. If the ailerons, the banking left and right feels a bit limiting for you, move the sensitivities down a bit. Maybe minus 40, 30 or whatever you prefer. For me, the settings I showed you before suit me for my ailerons. Pitch. Yeah, it just feels very yoke-like when I'm pitching up and down, especially and moving left and right. Wonderful. So next best thing to using a yoke now, I feel, the Hotas one. If you're on a budget especially, you can't afford the Velocity one or you don't want to pay out that much. You've got a limited budget. A Series S and the Hotas one is all you need now, I reckon. It's my second favourite way to fly, in fact. Obviously, I prefer using my Velocity one or Logitech Flight Yoke system. But now with the Hotas one, it's an enjoyable way. You get much more accurate control, much more finite control over your aircraft when you're turning, banking, pitching. Feels lovely, I've got to say. Okay, we don't need to do too much of a flight test here. Let's just turn 180 degrees back towards the airport. Quick turnaround, not following proper procedures, I know. But that's what these test flights are all about. There's London City ahead of us. Put my throttle halfway, trim up a little bit. Should be enough to get us down to flaps 1 speed. We're nearly there. There you go. Stage 1 flaps. Trim down a bit. Over trim there. Never mind. Bring my throttle back a little bit more there. Head towards London City Airport. No issues at all. Feels lovely. Just feels so accurate now. I mean, before I was doing quick settings, -50 in the aileron and pitch axis, and maybe -30 in the rudders, just because we had to reset our sensitivities, reset them every time we flew in Flight Simulator. Now you can just set them and forget. Just play around with them. Like I said, I played around for a good few hours last night with them. And these I find are the ones that suit me, and it's actually more enjoyable for sure now to fly using my Hotas 1 for sure. Maybe going to do in quite a few more videos with the Hotas 1 now for that reason alone. Bring my throttle back a bit more, a bit high and low on the pappies, but I'm not too worried. This is not a pappy tutorial. But we can try and bring them back, I guess. At least get one white showing in there, can we? Doesn't really matter. In fact, I do want to land short because I want to taxi. This is not typically the runway you would land at in real life. You would come the other direction. So the taxiways are close to our threshold of the runway here, so I'm just going to get down basically. Oh, wonderful to use. Wonderful. Very, very intuitive. Now there is an aircraft on the runway there, but never mind. Thankfully we can fly through them. Just bring my throttle down and watch me flare infinitely over that runway. Look at that. Wonderful. I could just flare, 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 flare. Touchdown. No issues. And then taxi off. Can we do a high-speed taxi? I have to watch my throttle there. Yes, we can. And there we go. And now we can just taxi. Well, let's just get ourselves sandwiched in between these two jumbos. Or these two airliners. And there we go. Bring my flaps back up. Stick on the parking brake. And there you go. So that's a test flight with my sensitivity settings. Brilliant, we can save them now. Shame about reactivity, but I'm not too worried about that with the Hotas 1. At least we can save the sensitivity settings. Please share your settings down below in the comments. I'll be interested to read them and learn about them. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. By the way, I've heard now that the Velocity 1 settings also save. So you can bet I'll be doing a video on that soon. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, many more Flight Simulator videos on their way. And I'll see you very soon.